Alrighty. Me. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classic Known Classics. This is episode number 22 or 2304 and Doubleshot number 2198. Spider-Man and X-Men. First up, we have Masterworks Amazing Spider-Man Volume 17, which collects issues 169 to 180, along with the 11th annual. This book covers the period of June 1977 to May of 1970, roughly about a year worth of comics. Excuse me. The main writer for these issues is Late Lee Wein. Excuse me. The annual has 3 writers: Bill Mansell, Archie Goodwin, and Scott Eatman. Marvel Woman does know number 12. Yeah, they collected in here too. Ross Aldridge is your artist. Main issues. The annual is by Don Pearl and John Means Jr. And number 12 is by Sal Buscema. First that we have is basically the aftermath. We have basically sort of a minor follow-up to the original Clone Saga, where Peter gets blackmailed into basically the whole stuff where James finds out about it. Yeah, that's mostly what you see Marla appear in here. Mostly probably have any like shocker relationship in this one. Of course, everything is basically an imposter, but nope, not really. Yeah, just basically just a one-off in. And then he runs into the Trapster. Actually, the Trapster is some other guy. Spider-Man deals, and then we have issue number 170, where he fights Dr. Faustus. Yes, Dr. Faustus from Captain America comics. Why is he here? I don't know, just to follow up to somebody half page of Captain America. So I have him make a quick guest appearance issue. Does hallucinations, and he's taken off, and he's not sitting in. And then we jump over to Nova. Yes. Where Peter Parker is accused of killing the uncle of Richard Rider, and with the guy named Photon, and there are suspects are Peter Parker. We have Harry Days, Jason Dean, Michael Lunkin, and Franklin Risk. Yeah, it's a 2-part that leads into stuff related to Missing Spider-Man. This was, I think, the first time they ever actually met them. Yeah, it's revealed actually it is, well, Jason Dean. He's the one responsible for it. Yep. After this 2-part crossover is wrapped up, Nova goes back to his book. His book surprisingly lasts for another 13 issues before getting canceled, and him getting his story wrapped by the pages of Rom and Fantastic Four. Yep. X2-parter. Now, in the case of number 11, it's one of these multi-story. It's basically, it's like Spider of the Spartacus. Yeah, it's basically like a Hollywood type of thing. It's like all about the man spider. It's like a minor follow-up to like issue 101-ish. Yeah, just to take on the man spider stuff. Yeah, it's only here for this one annual. That's the first story. The second story just Peter stopping some thugs. And then move on to issue 172. We have debut of 2 new characters. First up we have is the Rocket Racer. Yes, the Rocket Racer. He makes his debut in this issue. He's sort of a villain, but he got his tech from the Terrible Thinker. And oh boy, he's not the only one. We have stuff with Harry, who's basically being cured. He's falling in love with Liz. And of course we have the whole thing with Marla here. And then all of a sudden, Multiman shows up for a 2-part. Yes, Multiman is here. And he's here for this issue and the following issue, and he's supposedly gets cured in issue 173, but it's temporary. It's weird. Like, every time he shows up, he's only here for 2 issues, and he's gone in here for quite a while. And then afterwards, we get 174, 175 as a follow-up to a couple different things. One, this is an appearance by the Punisher. And another, we get the return of the Hitman, who's here for this two-parter where he is hired to kill Jameson. At the end of this two-parter, he dies. Yeah. You create a character in Peter Parker's Second Spider-Man, bring him back in this book, killed off in his fourth appearance. Oh yeah, he's also getting the Punisher. Like, that's kind of weird. Yeah. It's sad, though, the fact that they killed off this character. He just killed himself. He's not killed the Scourge in the world. Well, probably because he wasn't invented yet. But yeah, he just commits suicide. Because Punisher saves Spider-Man's life. And then we have 176. And we have follow-up afterwards because Jameson doesn't thank him, just basically just drives him home. We have also where we have this other storyline going on here where May Parker is basically just protesting about old people having rights. Yeah, they do. And, well, she has one of her many, many different heart attacks. Yeah. So, and then they have Green Goblin show up. Like, what? What the heck is going on here? Well, this is the start of a new Goblin story arc. You're thinking, what? The new Goblin story arc? What do you mean, Nick? Well, this is the debut of the third Green Goblin. Yeah, it starts 177. I think it wraps up 176. I think it wraps up like 170. I think it wraps up 179. I think it is. Excuse me. Actually, I think it's like 180 wraps up with. Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, for 180 review, who the heck this guy is. Yeah, then we have to see Harry put on the costume. Like, wait, then who's in the costume? So he takes the mask, and it's supposed to be Burt Hamilton. You're thinking, who the heck is Burt Hamilton? Harry Osborn's psychiatrist. Yep. Who becomes the King Goblin for this one set of issues, and he dies. Yep. He dies, and he does not come back. He's confirmed as third Green Goblin history, and then, of course, then he dies. And then after this soul story happens in the epilogue, you have Liz and Harry reunite. Liz and Harry reunite, and that leads into something else. But this was an excellent set of issues. I love it. I give this Marvel Masterworks a 10 out of 10. Next up we have is Marvel Masterworks Uncanny X-Men Volume 9, which collects Uncanny X-Men 168 to 175 and number 7, Marvel number 5, and Wolverine Volume 1, Issue 1 to 4. The only thing I'm discussing here is Wolverine in the Marvel graphic novel because that's basically God Loves Man Kills. But the main issues themselves, we cover the period of 1968, April 1960. It's April 1983, and we end it with November of 1983. Like, okay, interesting. So basically, within the same time period. Yep. First up, Scott McNeil. I've discussed one a few times. Classic X-Men story. I'm going to skip over, go straight to the X-Men issues so I can get to it. Not surprising to this in here because it came up the same period of time, so why not? And then we have 116, and we have the very famous scene, Professor Xavier is a jerk. All because she, had one mistake on mission, so he demote her to the mutants, but she's not happy with that. And this whole issue is basically having her basically pounce and basically try to get back on the main X-Men team, which she does succeed at. That's really the whole point of this issue. Yep. Oh, by the way, in a future comic corner, we can't see that. And then we have the end of the issue. We have debut of a character who has got a very confusing history over the years. a character who's had some retcons because apparently the writers didn't know what to do with her. Because issue 168 is debut of Madeline Pryor, the future main villain of a crossover that happened not long after this. And you're thinking, really? Yes, really. And then 169 begins a story arc involving the Morlocks. No, seriously. It's the Morlock story arc, which you have reappearance here by the Inner Circle. We have the Hellfire Club. Yep. Where Angel is kidnapped by Calypso, where she's taken off his pants and basically she wears underwear. Calypso, who's got a scar on her face. She's a mutant, and she looks pretty normal-ish. And then Storm fights her for a position, which continues in issue 170. We also have Scott basically trying to basically do his own thing. Then you have it where Warren and Calypso try to get married, but Storm's like, nope. Then, of course, basically Storm challenges her for her spot. Yes, Storm challenges her for her spot as the leader of the Morlocks. This night battle, which Storm wins and becomes new leader of the Morlocks. And then in issue 171, this is a historic issue because this is something that's still around. Issue 171, we have Rogue joining the X-Men. She can go over the years, but this actually is when she officially joined the team for the first time. Yep, and by the way, this issue is co-done by Walt Simonson. Yep, he's the artist of this issue. Yeah, the stuff play here with the Phoenix stuff here, that's minor. Then, where she joins the X-Men just to control her powers, which, okay, fine. Then comes Wolverine, which I discussed before in her own deluxe edition, so I'm going to skip over those issues, which they continue also an issue of Uncanny X-Men, a two-parter, which involves a parent wedding. Yes, Wolverine attempts to get married in, where it concludes in 173, 273, where they attempt to get married, but Mastermind manipulates it, where he's like, you are not worthy. Yes, Margot calls at the wedding last minute because she's being manipulated by Mastermind. Yep. So Wolverine attempts basically to try to go after this, but it doesn't go much anywhere at all. Wolverine does not officially get married in comics until the 2000s, when he marries Vipra, that can control Mandrapore, and then he gets divorced from her. You also have a little joke where Kitty kisses Colossus in this period of time. And this goes nowhere until about 2004. Excuse me. Yes. And of course, Scott accuses Madeline Pryor being Courage Phoenix. It doesn't go into. It continues to 175, excuse me. Where, yeah, it doesn't really go much anywhere at all. It's here because it's 20th anniversary of the X-Men, so. Yeah, and then this leads into, well, Scott having his first of two weddings in comics. Yes, this issue in particular is him marrying Madeline Pryor. Now, here's something quite strange, though. In this panel here, this must be a coloring error. I know people who did this, where the bride is clearly a blonde, or it could be a bridesmaid, I'm not sure. Where Scott marries Madeline Pryor, and this marriage lasts for about 2 or 3 years, and they had a kid together, and that kid is Cable. Well, a kid grew up to be Cable. And number 7 is simply put this: the X-Men versus the Impossible Man. Yes, seriously, that's what this annual is all about. And you're thinking, really? That's what it's about? Just that? Yes, seriously. That is seriously what this annual is about. And that's it. Yep, that's it. More great issues. I do have another Epic collection I'm going to do in a future Comic Corner, probably the very next one, where it's basically stuff that happened 2 years after this, but I'm going to try to close that gap, like get out of the 80s for the X-Men. But as far as I can tell for Uncanny X-Men, I have reviewed. With this, I can get to a little bit further than this. but not much further. I only have that's on here because technically there's been about 16 of these released, but they only have the first 14. So 14 as far as I can go. So I can only continue this for about 5 more volumes, and then I have to switch individual issues in order to close out the 80s for this one. Yes, that's what's going to have to look like. Yep. So, yeah, that's it, particular review. I might have one more Comic Corner coming tonight, but who knows. Okay, next video. Bye.